Willie the Weatherman. Perhaps it was not entirely accurate to say that Bill Ragsdale, aka Willie the Weatherman, was never really trained to give the weather. He had actually been interested in flying for a good many years and had taken a number of flying lessons. However, I don't believe he ever received his pilot's license. Yet he did get to know many people associated with Dale Mabry Field, our local airport at the time, including those who collected weather information and provided forecasts. Furthermore, one naturally wants to learn something about the weather if you wanted to fly and stay alive. Nevertheless, even if Dad had not already possessed some weather knowledge, I think he could still have been a good weatherman. I imagine he might have thought, how hard can it be? Then he would have gone about the task exactly like he did. He had told us kids about that first day when he was told that he needed to report the weather. I suppose he also told how he immediately called the people he knew at the airport to get the information he required. It was a call that was repeated thousands of times over a 19-year period. Dad had a great memory and could remember many of the weather details of first hearing. However, he did write things down and had some of the information hung on sheets of paper dangling from in front of the TV camera. The studio's budget did not include the teleprompter at that time. In addition, he would often make the trip out to the airport and talk to the people he knew, especially if the weather seemed unsettled. Predicting the weather even today is not an exact science. We now have detailed computer models and the ability to use Doppler radar, adjuncts just not available in the 1950s. However, models still existed even in those more primitive years, though they might be more based on the experience of the weather forecaster. In fact, outright hunches were often more accurate than you might think. Hence, talking to the weather people in person was sometimes extremely beneficial. In this way, Dad started to develop his own internal weather models and could generate his own hunches. That was used to an amazing extent at a particular moment in time, which will be related later. Initially, Willie the Weatherman went on the air to report the weather 3 times each day. He had the early morning forecast at 7 a.m., the evening forecast at 6 p.m., and the late night at 11 p.m. This, of course, meant being at the station and collecting the weather stats by telephone about 1 hour before time. It was fortunate that he didn't really need 8 or 9 hours of sleep per night. Otherwise, he never could have done it. However, he got even less sleep when he augmented the phone stats by actually visiting the airport. Yet he did this all dutifully for 19 years. I never heard him complain much about it, and I think he really enjoyed it. I know he took it very seriously. However, he quickly learned that his listeners did so as well. If a farmer or anybody didn't get the weather they expected or wanted, they would often write letters or make phone calls complaining about the situation. Dad was amazed that some people actually thought that he had control of the weather. He would tell them they only reported it and did not make it. Nevertheless, the phone calls and letters kept coming. However, the best thing was that he received quite a number of communications from viewers indicating that they really enjoyed his weather reports. This made Dad very happy indeed. In fact, I think he became a fascinating figure to some. Here was this man with a bushy mustache, black-rimmed glasses, a black derby hat, and a black suit giving the weather while smoking a pipe. Dad liked to smoke pipes and had a whole assortment of them at home. However, he would use his pipe as a pointer when he gave the weather. Then, when he was done pointing, he would stick the pipe in his coat pocket. Now, the pipe wasn't always lit, but sometimes it was. On those occasions, it was a wonder that his coat didn't burst into a violent conflagration. I think this was something that not a few viewers conjectured, and some maybe even watched to see if it would happen. Also, Dad was what the Southerner would call a Yankee, and he spoke very quickly. Speaking fast allowed him to convey the weather information in the short time that was allotted. Yet the listeners felt that when comparing him to their own speech patterns, he probably talked faster than anyone they'd ever heard. It was an exciting and absorbing combination to many, especially the kids. It was an amazing fact that even kids listened to his weather reports. This was perhaps because they wanted to know what to wear that day to school, and their parents told them to watch the TV and Willie to find out. Hence, Dad had quite a kids following. He would tell, and I also witnessed this, of meeting kids on the sidewalk of our town, and they would burst into a shrill chorus of "Willie!" They were, of course, fascinated to see someone in person whom they'd only seen on their TV in black and white. However, Dad's uniform while on TV, a black hat, clothes, and accoutrements, made him look similar in person if he was still in character. However, whether or not he had his derby with him, Dad was always in character. The kids would ask for his autograph, he loved that, and he would sign his name for them as Willie T. Weatherman. It was a nice, harmless game, but was one of the joys of being on TV. Nevertheless, such encounters drove home, if this was at all necessary, that he was supplying an important service, and they should always do the best that he could. Dad had one shining moment regarding the weather that should have been recorded in all the history books, but has probably been forgotten by most. It almost never snows in Tallahassee. I saw it only once in the 14 years I lived there. In fact, I believe it is usually over 30 years between snowfalls. However, one evening Dad saw from the weather stats that not only was snow possible, it was extremely likely. For some reason, he decided to not only predict a snowfall, but to tell the exact time would begin within 90 minutes. Amazingly, he turned out to be right, and his reputation as a weatherman really soared after the snow fell at the exact moment he predicted. I remember that snowfall, only a couple of inches. As kids, we were so excited since we had never seen anything like it before. Yet to predict snow to the minute must have really taken some guts. Being Willie the Weatherman was how many people still remember Dad. However, as this movie shows, reporting the weather was only one facet of his personality.